There it goes. Hello, Hall of Fame Dynasty members. We are officially into our first playoff week for football, and it's week 14. We've got 2 weeks remaining after this, of course, and it's going to be a blast. Unfortunately, we didn't have this kind of setup going for our baseball playoffs, but I think this is going to be a lot more fun. And I actually have one of our owners joining us today. It would be Mac from the Minnesota franchises. So go ahead and say hi, Mac.
Yes, I am here, ready to tell Chris I'm gonna kick his ass and talk shit about Sean and how he's gonna get his ass kicked by Dallas.
Well, it's actually funny because I know you were pissed at Dallas earlier this week, partly because of what we had happen with. I once again did not share. I keep doing that the last few weeks with the waiver wire. So that's obviously one of our biggest pieces of league news was the claiming of Jalen Samuels, who does, of course, have wide receiver and tight end eligibility, or running back and tight end eligibility for our league, unlike most leagues such as ESPN. But Fantrax and Yahoo do have him, and I know it was a big talking point. And I know you were going after him earlier this week, so you've got obviously a little bit of a bitterness there for Dallas.
I don't know. I needed him. I have Connor down. I got how do you say Breda? I don't know how to say his
Yeah,
last name.
Matt
He's
Breda.
down. I needed these running backs. I needed them big time. And I lost the Samuels bid, which sucks. But I got Zay Jones, which is nice. And then I got Wilson Jr. as well.
Yeah, and that was obviously one of the biggest pickups too, with Breda being out, Morris being just not being a part of that San Francisco
Mm-hmm.
offense. So you obviously made league news with that. We had Ronald Jones Jr. find his way to his third team of 2018 after being claimed by the Denver Broncos. He started on the New England Patriots. Then I had him for my team a while, and I just didn't see any point to him. So he is now part of the Denver Broncos as they are on their bye week. And like you said, James Conner was labeled out. I mean, the good thing is it did come out. It might be good or bad, depending on how you view it, that he was labeled out before waivers went through. And then obviously we had two other big injuries with Emmanuel Sanders going down for the year with an Achilles tear. And obviously, I mean, you traded Melvin Gordon and you wouldn't have had, it's funny just the fact that Melvin Gordon and James Conner are out this week. It kind of was a wash for this year, it seems like.
That is true. That is true.
So obviously, let's get to the current playoff picture. So we're sitting at, obviously, I've got the number one spot, number one seed with the bye week, and then we have Keith with the number two seed. He lost the number one seed to me by one game. It was really close, but I wanted to keep him from having the number one seed 2 sports in a row. I was able to do that, and because of that, we did a little mock press conference with him. I was curious to see how he felt about having the bye week during our inaugural season. He said it was great. It's one step farther down the road to the championship, and he will be spending this bye week with his fantasy voodoo doll, apparently. Which I tried to question. I tried to follow that up with of who that might be. I don't know if it's a player, if it's an owner, but or a certain team. But I did not get a response from that. He was very cold.
If
And
he's using if he's using witch magic to win these leagues, I think that's gonna have to we're gonna have to talk about that. Maybe kick him out.
it might be against the league rules. It does seem like that way, especially with him leading in NHL and NBA as well. 4 sports in
Jeez.
a row is tough. I mean, I know we had our drafts all this year, but damn, that's impressive. All 4 sports contending right away.
It's got to be witch magic. It's got to be the voodoo doll. I think he's completely serious about that. I think he's completely serious.
He just has a whole
Like,
lineup for all 10 teams at his house just sitting. Okay, which one this week? Putting pins
that's
in the
exactly
legs.
it. It's exactly it. They tell him who to draft. They tell him who to pick up. It's he's out big cauldron in the middle of his living room.
And so I did actually go on to ask him just for a little fun to see who he thought would win these matchups. And we've got the Carolina Panthers taking on the Dallas Cowboys, along with your Minnesota Vikings, Mac, taking on Chris's Falcons. For his predictions, he has the Cowboys winning, and he called your guys' game a toss-up. I was actually kind of surprised by that just because of the way that the predictions are playing out. But honestly, after doing some research, it really does look like it. So for you, at least, who are you taking in the Carolina and Dallas game before we get to the matchups.
I have to take Dallas in that. Sean limped his way into the playoffs. I think he lost 4 straight. So slowly just limped, just dragged his dead body across and limped his way into the playoffs. And I don't see him coming out of this game whatsoever.
Well, and the funny thing, too, is due to the fact that Seattle lost and San Francisco won, you know that we had that big mix-up, really, with between Carolina, San Fran, and Seattle all being 5-8 going into this week. We kind of had to do a little bit of research, I guess is the best way to say it, for who deserved the playoff spot. And thankfully, especially with you getting the 2 wins over him during the regular season, that allowed you to jump him for that number 5 seed while he fell to 6, and San Fran was on the outside looking in just barely. So that was the tough part for them. But I do want to say congratulations on jumping 2 spots in that final week. That was very impressive.
Yeah, it's I had no idea. I traded out Thielen and Gordon, and I'm surprised. I'm honestly surprised to see myself at the 5th seed over Sean, but just shows I'm a better fantasy player than him, I guess.
Well, we do have Chris kind of commenting in here on the side saying, don't get ahead of yourself, at least talking to you, Mac, because of the fact that you do have 4 rookies in your lineup this week.
Well, let's get to that when we get to the matchups, and I'll talk about that some more. Here.
All right, sounds like a plan. So obviously, like we said, you were sitting at 5-8. Chris snuck into the number 4 seed at 7-6. Obviously, the top of the league was very top-heavy with myself and Denver, but the rest of it was really actually very, very close. Even though Denver's sitting at 9-4 at the 3rd spot, every other spot was up for grabs into this last week. And with you getting a number 5, you get to face him. And I'm going to pull it up here, so I'm going to kind of try and ramble a little bit here as I pull up your guys' matchup, since we all did play each other at least once. Obviously, division we played twice. I don't remember who won that matchup or when you guys played. Let's see. I'm pulling it up here. Let's see. I know it was later in the season, I believe. Vikings Saints, Vikings Broncos, Vikings Raiders. Okay. You lost by only 16 points, and that was in week 8. So that was just before the actual trade deadline close to our trade deadline for our league. So 16 points, and that was when the Falcons were actually playing well, the real-life Falcons. And, of course, obviously, let's go on to our quarterback comparison where he has Matt Ryan at quarterback versus your Josh Allen. I'll let you kind of take the lead on this one since I know you love Josh Allen, what he's been doing recently, and I think this will be a lot of fun. So go ahead.
Josh Allen, who was it? Sean dropped him a few weeks into the season. I had just acquired Jimmy G. He went down. I was like, Winston was still suspended at this point, I think. I was like, why not roster a 4th quarterback? Like, it just made sense in my head. And so I picked him up. And I don't think I've started him once since then.
Probably not.
I don't think I have. And so this week is the week, though. He's done damn well these last 2 weeks. At least putting up 20 points or more in the last couple of weeks, running the ball a ton. And then this week he's got the Jets defense, which it's the New York Jets. Nothing much to say there, really. I think he will run all over them, air out the ball pretty well. Hope that's why I picked up Zay Jones as well. And I think I have to roll with him over Russell Wilson, who's my 1st-round pick, because Russell Wilson has got the Vikings D this week, and the Vikings D can be hot as hell or not really, but I just don't want to take that chance, and I'd rather take Josh Allen over the Jets.
I'm actually going to go with you on that. I love Matt Ryan and everything that he's able to do or has done in his career, but they are taking on the Green Bay Packers, who have, like you said, they have a defense similar to the Vikings where they can be good at times, they can be bad, but especially Green Bay has a lot of rookies in that secondary. But the Falcons just haven't been playing well. They haven't gotten anything out of their run game, which has led to Ryan not playing well. And the thing I like about Josh Allen a lot is he's rushing. He's playing almost a Deshaun Watson, a Russell Wilson type game. where he's rushed for, let's see, where is it? I have it pulled up. I can't even see it. 135 yards last week on 9 attempts and 13 attempts for 99 yards on the ground. So over 200 yards on just over 20 carries the last 2 weeks combined. And that, I mean, as weird as it is for anyone to start a Bills quarterback in the first round of the playoffs, and as bold as it is, he's got a good floor because of that rushing. And he did, like you said, over 25 points each of the last 2 games. And the Jets defense hasn't been very special. So I'm giving the advantage to the Minnesota Vikings here with Josh Allen. As bold as it is, I like Josh Allen.
I had to do it. I have to win a game like this when Connor and Britta are out. I have to make some bold strategies like this, and it had to be done. Chris is talking shit in the chat, saying nothing to talk about here. Matt Ryan advantage against Green Bay. Stop joking with yourself on Josh Allen. And Matt Ryan can't finish in the red zone, so he's got a limp dick when he enters the red zone, and there's nothing more to say about it than that. Really.
I mean, when you've got Steve Sarkisian, he's the best shutdown corner for Julio Jones in the red zone because he just doesn't know how to get the ball to him and doesn't want to. So obviously Ryan is going to fail this week. I like Josh Allen because of the rushing, because of the fact that they are going to be able to take advantage of the Jets defense. Mm-hmm. So let's move on to running backs. This was probably the ugliest group of running backs that I've seen in a playoff. So you've got Peyton Barber, Rashad Penny, and Jeff Wilson Jr. for your Minnesota Vikings, taking on the Falcons, Isaiah Crowell, Kenyon Drake, and Nyheim Hines. There is not a single bell cow back in these backfields. It's tough. Obviously, Jeff Wilson's probably the closest one because Peyton Barber is losing a little bit of work to Ronald Jones Jr., who we mentioned earlier. Rashad Penny does sit behind Carson, but Chris Carson seems to get hurt every single game. Obviously, Jeff Wilson Jr. is going to he'll take advantage of Breda being out and Morris not fitting into that offense. While Crowell could easily be phased out of the offense this week in favor of Elijah McGuire, who's the pass catching back for the Jets. Kenyon Drake is a guy that can go from either 4 points or 24 points. So you never know what you're getting from him, especially with Adam Gase and Frank Gore still in that backfield, the infinite Frank Gore. How he still does it, I have no idea. And then obviously Nyheim Hines, he's a good pass catching back for the Colts, especially against Houston and that defensive line. But I still worry about them being able to get the ball spread to him and him actually being able to gain yards. So what's your prediction here on this, Mac?
With my ragtag group of running backs here, Peyton Barber hasn't done shit in the past, I don't know how many weeks. Rashad Penny, rookie, I don't know what he has done either. He's in there only because I didn't get Samuels. And then Wilson Jr., I think he put up 20 points last week, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check that here. But he put 19.4 points last week for Wilson Jr. And, I'm really hoping to see that or more from him this week. I'm just hoping for at least maybe 9-10 points from Penny and Peyton Barber. But I have to take the Falcons running back in this for sure.
Well, they have phased Penny more into the offense. They've gotten him going, and a lot of that is due to Chris Carson's inability to stay healthy. So, I mean, I like him. He did put up double-digit points last week, and a lot of that, he showed that he was really electric. And that's something that Seattle's needed is an electric running back, especially behind a rough offensive line at times. I mean, 7 carries for 65 yards, obviously almost 10 yards a carry is great. Just it's a low volume play, but he's got a bit of a home run ability, which I like. But
that's what I'm hoping for. The thing is they're playing the Vikings. So, in the week before that 12.5 week, he put up 0.4 points. Week before that, 4.6, but the week before that, 16.8. So, in the two defenses he put up low points against was Green Bay and Carolina. And so I'm not sure. It's really a gamble play there, especially against the Minnesota defense. But I'm hoping that Minnesota even though I'm a Minnesota fan, I'm kind of hoping they fall apart and let Penny run all day.
Well, and you've got a bunch of backs on your bench and IR too, unfortunately, with
Yes.
Collins and Latavius Murray and Carlos Hyde, which it's good you didn't play him. He didn't do anything the other night on Thursday
he
Night
hasn't
Football.
done ever since that trade. He hasn't done,
which was kind of predicted for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do have the Falcons running backs taking this one. I almost wanted to call it a wash just because I do like what Jeff Wilson could do this week against, even though it's Denver, I think he could see a lot of work. I think he could put up a comparable line to Nyheim Hines, just with a lot of catches out of the backfield. He'll be the bell cow back, but the rest, it's really a wash between them. So I gave the slight advantage to Atlanta here. So in our wide receivers, in our wide receiver grouping, like you mentioned before, you picked up Zay Jones. You have Allen Robinson, who you acquired from me earlier this year. You had the surprising D.D. Westbrook and Robert Woods, who's been solid all year, taking on a actually very big group of names with Mike Evans, Calvin Ridley, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Demaryius Thomas. Obviously, I mean, Zay Jones versus Mike Evans. Give me Evans all day on that, even though it is against New Orleans. I mean, he's going to draw some good coverage. I kind of want to see what you feel about these groupings before I get into it.
He's got the bigger name wide receivers: Mike Evans, Juju Smith-Schuster, Calvin Ridley, fantastic rookie this year. But I have the Zay Jones, Josh Allen connection. I really hope sparks this week against the Jets. Really hoping with Trubisky back now. I think he's going to be back this week. Hopefully Robinson can do some more this week as well. D.D. Westbrook put up 20-some points last night. Absolutely unreal. Jacksonville got their shit stomped. But at least that one TD, thank God, went to D.D. Westbrook. How many receptions did he get last night?
7 catches for 88 yards and a touchdown. That was more than I thought it would be. And you kind of got advantage of garbage time there too, which helps. I mean, like you said, Jacksonville got stomped, which meant that Cody Kessler was obviously going to have to air the ball out. They want to try and make it a more respectable score. 3 touchdowns isn't great, but it's better than 30-3. So it played out in your favor, and I did not expect Westbrook to get 21 points.
I didn't know what I expected from him either. Couldn't play. I didn't really want to play. And Amendola is hurt this week. Snead. It was really over Snead or him, I think, was what I was looking at there. But I thank God.
I think you made the right call there.
Thank God. Thank God.
And then obviously you've got Robert Woods taking on the Bears. It's always a tough defense, but the Rams have been able to find offense all over. So which way do you think this wide receiver grouping is going to go? You or Chris?
It's tough. I want to like Chris with Juju Smith-Schuster, Calvin Ridley, and Mike Evans. I want to say Chris, but in my heart, I really feel like I really want Zay Jones to put up a fantastic week along with Allen Robinson with Trubisky back. So I'm gonna say me. Maybe it's a little homerish there, but I really think Josh Allen and Zay Jones are gonna perform this week, especially after they dropped Kelvin Benjamin. He's weighing down the wide receivers too much, and whoever else the other guy was, I don't even remember the names. But really hoping Zay Jones puts a big week along with Allen Robinson. I'm gonna say me after that D.D. Westbrook 21 points, but common sense would probably be Chris.
I took this all into account without looking at D.D. Westbrook's 21 points. If I did, I probably would give it to you, but I am going to go with Chris in this one, just simply because
makes sense.
Due to the matchups. I mean, Ridley is taking on Green Bay. He's going to play out of the slot. They really, like I said, a bunch of rookie defensive backs there is always tough. Evans taking on New Orleans, that's going to be a shootout, and I expect him to see a lot from Jameis Winston. Juju Smith-Schuster taking on Oakland it was the biggest thing that swung it this week for me, because obviously we know Oakland doesn't have a defense, even though they're going to have the ball a ton. I think the over-under in that game is 55.5 points. So a lot of it's going to go to Pittsburgh with not Jalen Samuels, James Conner out for the week. Obviously, Jalen Samuels is going to get a bunch of work, but I could see Stephen Ridley. I could see Juju Smith-Schuster and Antonio Brown just being on the receiving end of that part of all the points and the yards, because why run the ball if you can't get a run game going? Even though Demaryius Thomas hasn't done a lot and it is against Indy, it's a slight favor for Chris. Yep. So tight ends, tight ends has been a gross field all year. honestly, if there wasn't Kelsey or Zach Ertz, there'd be nothing at tight end, and it's been rough all year. Obviously, you know that because you are starting Gerald Everett for the Rams, taking on Chris's Jared Cook. And before I get your prediction, Jared Cook was the guy that I think I drafted almost every year. He was that guy who would draft every single year and he would never do anything. And now that I don't own him anywhere, he's actually doing something. And it's partly because he's the only player in Oakland that's worth throwing to at this point. Jordy Nelson's old, Martavis Bryant's hurt again. And it's the only, you got to at least throw the ball a little bit in the NFL. So obviously Jared Cook gets all that work. Mm-hmm. But what's your prediction for this week in terms of favor?
I've never heard of my tight end before, so I'm gonna have to go with Jared Cook here. I had the rookie Mark Andrews from Baltimore last week, and I had to squeak out a few more points this week, all I could. So I picked up I don't even know his name, Gerald Everett.
Gerald Everett, yep.
So, I'm gonna have to go Cook here. It makes sense because I have never heard of my tight end ever.
Chris does say about the wide receivers, bigger names, better wide receivers. Bigger names, sure, but honestly, sexiness isn't always a thing. But tight ends, I like Gerald Everett. Only reason I know him is because of Madden. I used the Rams, I think, last year, so it's the only reason I know him. But yeah, obviously the Raiders are going to be trailing Pittsburgh like we just talked about with that 55.5 over-under. Jared Cook's going to see a lot of work just like he has all year. So, Gerald Everett's predicted 4 points compared to 10.5 for Jared Cook. So I gave the advantage to the Falcons, but it
makes total sense. I would agree.
Like I said, tight end, and part of it is you have Jack Doyle who's hurt. Your team, your bench really is just an infirmary at this point. You've got no more room to really put anyone. So that's the hard part for you.
At all. Oh boy, it's been hard.
You have 5 zeros on your bench for projected points because of injury between Garoppolo, Connor, Breda, Jack Doyle, who would have been a great play this week, and Alex Collins. But obviously Doyle would have been in favor of Jared Cook there.
Doyle's been hurt half this year, and it's been tough watching that because he did well the start of the year, and I was excited, but he's been hurt half the year, it seems like. So, gotta start Everett. Gerald Everett. That's his fucking name.
Yep. And so we get to the flex spot here, and this is actually where our press conference with Chris came into play. The start that he was kind of worried about here was Tyreek Hill, who he has in his flex, taking on Baltimore. That's a tough matchup, even though, especially since it's at Baltimore. Tyreek Hill has been better on the road compared to at home, which is very odd. But obviously taking on Baltimore, great pass rush, great defense all over. Even with Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, I wonder how – that's one of my favorite matchups of the week to watch. And so in the flex spot, obviously he's got Tyreek Hill, but you are starting Nelson Aguilar, Devin Funchess, and James Washington, who's getting his first start for you this year.
Yeah.
And then taking on Antonio Callaway of the Cleveland Browns, Tyreek Hill, and Mike Williams. This is pretty interesting because there's a lot of low use guys who Antonio Callaway has the home run speed, kind of similar to Tyreek Hill, just not as fast. Mike Williams would get anywhere from 1 to 3 catches on the week, especially with Keenan Allen becoming such a focal point for the Chargers. Why don't you go ahead and talk about your group of flex players here?
Well, I think Aguilar and Funchess have sat in my flex for the whole year, except on their buys. And I haven't touched them or moved them really ever. More so James Washington here. He this week it sounds like he's going to be a bigger part of the Steelers' game plan against the Raiders. And like I said, they're playing the Raiders, so I'm hopefully he gets in that game plan with Big Ben airing out the ball there. And I guess I was reading the Fantrax analysis here. He was a healthy scratch for last week, but
Justin Hunter. Justin Hunter is out this week, so he's going to slot in as the wide receiver 3, likely in the slot 2, which helps him.
Yeah, and I think Big Ben told Washington that he's still confident in him, so hopefully that boost from Big Ben, and hopefully he'll air the ball out to him. This is another Hail Mary play by me. Really hoping that he will capitalize on this opportunity here that he's getting, and hopefully because Big Ben is still confident in him that he will toss him the ball a few times and maybe just grab a touchdown, possibly get some yards and eke out some points from there. And it was I think it's I have Snead on my bench. I got Williams on my bench. The two running backs don't really matter whatsoever. But I had to go with the Hail Mary play here, just hoping Big Ben will give the ball to Washington a few times against the Raiders this week.
I wouldn't be surprised if he did as well, just because of the fact that they obviously had that kind of falling out a few weeks ago where he was mad at him for dropping the ball near the goal line, and going into the playoff or getting close to the playoffs for them. And Justin Hunter, I think he hit IR. That James Washington is going to have to be a part of this offense, especially if James Conner is going to miss multiple weeks due to that ankle sprain. They're talking about him not being ready until the actual playoffs. So obviously the Steelers love to play in 3 wide receiver sets, and with Washington taking the slot role where you don't see a lot of great corners all the time, especially in the AFC, he's going to have a good opportunity here, and I like that. I'm going to give the advantage to Chris, though, in this category, simply because of Tyreek Hill. He's a game breaker, even against Baltimore. It's a tough matchup.
I would agree. I'd have to agree. The James Washington play will either hurt me or help me, but it doesn't help in the comparison standpoint whatsoever, and so I have to take Chris here as well.
Right. And Tyrell, I know you were talking about Tyrell Williams possibly slotting in, and it's kind of goes with Mike Williams here that it's one or the other usually that's going to get the advantage of it, because Tyrell Williams, 4 weeks ago had 4 catches for 46 yards, only 8 points. He's been kind of fading out. Mike Williams has become the big red zone target, I think, at 6'6", kind of a Kelvin Benjamin type, a little bit faster, obviously not weighing 280 pounds or whatever Kelvin Benjamin was. But yeah, it's tough to really have faith. I mean, obviously you want the better offense in Pittsburgh, and especially with the way that they're going to have to throw the ball. So overall, it was really tough because no one had a clear advantage in a single category. They were all really close, regardless of the names or projections, just because of the matchups. I really do like what you've got going here, Mac. The problem is you are just, like I said, you're an infirmary on a bench. That's all you are. So I'm going with Chris this week. I don't think it's going to be by a lot, because if Tyreek Hill kind of flops and only goes for 10, or if Mike Evans gets bottled up by the cornerbacks of New Orleans, who have been doing much better, especially if his running backs kind of get phased out, and if Jeff Wilson Jr. gets the kind of opportunity that I'm thinking he'll get, you have a good chance to really make an upset, especially since you're only about a 40-point difference. It's really nothing in fantasy.
Yeah, Chris just said he's thinking by 30 points that he's going to win. But if my Hail Mary plays work here with Josh Allen, Zay Jones, Wilson Jr., Rashad Penny puts up some, James Washington, and like you said, if he has at least a couple flops, there's a good chance, I'd say, that I can take this in an upset here. I'm feeling good about this. I'm really feeling good about the Josh Allen, Zay Jones connection. Like I said, I really hope James Washington puts up a couple. And if, like you said, if he just has a couple flops, that's all I need to sneak out by a few points.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter how much you win by as long as you get the win. And I wouldn't be surprised with Allen either, just because of the fact they finally got rid of Benjamin. Obviously, Zay Jones has become a bigger part of that offense. And obviously that stack is always nice to have, especially with our larger rosters. With a 12 or 14 team league, you may not want to do that, but due to the fact that 4 wide receivers, 3 running backs, you're bound to have a stack somewhere, and I like that stack a lot this week.
So did I.
So why don't we move on to the 6th seed Panthers, who sit at 5-8, who snuck into the playoffs, like you said, limped, and taking on the Dallas Cowboys, who sit at 9-4. They were comfortably in the number 3 seed last week. Had they won and moved up to 10-3, they could have actually there was a lot that could have gone Dallas's way, but it was mostly them trying to help out Denver and getting that number 1 seed. And currently, this is projected to be an absolute blowout, about 200 to 124. Obviously, the Panthers did not have a great start to the week on Thursday Night Football, I think, since they started about a quarter or half of that Jacksonville offense. We'll get into the quarterbacks first, though. So this is actually, there are some bigger names between these two teams. You've got Cam Newton taking on Ben Roethlisberger. Which one are you taking this week? You've got Cam Newton taking on Cleveland while Ben Roethlisberger is at Oakland. And we all know that Ben usually struggles on the road.
I'd still have to go Ben here. Oakland's defense is garbage, and Ben, I think he's really gonna have to throw the ball. I'm hoping now that Samuels isn't mine, I'm hoping that he doesn't put up big numbers this week. And that Big Ben airs out the ball a little more and passes out to Washington. Juju Smith-Schuster, Brown. He's got good pieces there, and I think he'll put up big numbers this week.
I agree. Cam Newton's been doing it a lot. He's been performing. Obviously, the Cleveland defense is better than we all kind of believe they are. It's one of those things of, oh, no, it's the Browns. They're not any good. But, I mean, between the pieces that they got in Denzel Ward and Demarius Randall, they've actually been performing. And even though that offense is kind of starting to click with Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore in Carolina, like you said, Oakland's got nothing on defense. Ben Roethlisberger should put up a ton of points this week. So obviously advantage goes to Dallas.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Now, before I move on, I kind of skipped over it, which I messed up on my part. But I did ask both these coaches what it was like to make the playoffs in this first year. Sean himself was saying it was great to make the playoffs, especially after week 3. He realized the team he drafted was underperforming, and he did have a fire sale. He sold off pieces like Juju Smith-Schuster, Brandon Cooks. There was one more wide receiver he traded, and I can't remember who it was. I'm spacing on it, but
I can look here.
He did have a huge fire sale this year, but he says how the rest of the league let him slip into the number 6 seed, he doesn't know. He doesn't know what the hell they were doing. And on the other side, when asked about that, Dallas said, it's an honor to play in the playoffs. It's validation for the hard work that he's put in, that his players have put in. And it's great for him. Obviously, even though we have 6 out of 10 make the playoffs, it's still tough. The matchups are always going to be close, as are the seeds for this year.
For sure. And going back to what you said about the wide receivers he traded, it looks like he only traded out Brandon Cooks and Juju Smith-Schuster.
Okay. I know he did recently trade Leonard Fournette, so he did lose the rights to him once the season is over. So that's going to be even tougher of a rebuild for him. Even I do believe he does have some picks.
He's looking to go big in MLB, and we'll see how that turns out for him.
I have a feeling, especially when he gets to face you, you've got the advantage there still. Your MLB team does seem to have the magic behind them.
I'm hoping. That's what I hope for each and every week.
So like we said, I know Leonard Fournette will no longer be his, but he is still a part of the Carolina Panthers at this moment. And the group of Leonard Fournette, Lamar Miller, and TJ Yeldon will be taking on the Cowboys trio of running backs in Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook, and Joe Mixon. This is very similar to the Falcons wide receiver group taking on yours. Obviously, you've got more names for the Dallas Cowboys, especially in the young Nick Chubb and Dalvin Cook, who seems to be kind of firing up for the playoffs, and Joe Mixon, who really has a tough time ending this year with A.J. Green going out, with Andy Dalton being out the rest of the year as well. It's going to be on the shoulders of Mixon, and it's tough. Obviously, Yeldon and Fournette put up a combined 8.8 points. Lamar Miller has looked like a brand new guy recently for the Texans. He's actually been performing. But who do you have in this position matchup?
I think I have to go Cowboys here. I like Nick Chubb has been doing fantastic the past few weeks for Cleveland. Like you said, their offense is clicking, it seems like now. Dalvin Cook, he's been doing okay these past few weeks as well. Past couple weeks, 18 points, 16 points for him. And like you said, Joe Mixon. I think I have to go because I think Fournette's coming back from an injury, correct?
Yes. Fournette was coming back from, he had the suspension as well, the 1-game suspension.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I have to go Dallas here, I think, again.
Yeah, even especially like you said, Nick Chubb has been performing. He is taking on Carolina's defense, which is only allowing about 15 points per game to the running back position. They rank 28th hardest matchup. I still think Chubb's going to get the work. And this is kind of similar to your guys' running back situation of bell cow versus not a bell cow. Obviously, Yeldon and Fournette were kind of switching between each other. Lamar Miller's the bell cow for the Texans, but you've got 3 bell cows taking on a split backfield. So obviously give me Cowboys as well. I like what Dalvin Cook could do against Seattle. They seem to be ramping him up. They are in a do or die position because if they lose this week and the Bears somehow find a way to beat the Rams, the Vikings will be eliminated from the division playoff or division crown because the Bears currently have a 2.5 game lead on the Vikings. And if the Vikings obviously lose, they'll be 2-3. They'll be trailing by 3.5 games with under 3 games to play. So the Bears could lock up the division in real life this week, which I'm hoping for personally.
I'm not hoping for that in real life, but
of course, because that Week 17 game will be fun if it's all on the line at that point.
That'll be a fantastic game. That'll be really fun.
So moving on to wide receivers, we've got a lot of big names here with Larry Fitzgerald, Adam Humphries, who a lot of people might not know, the rookie DJ Moore, and Mohamed Sanu taking on Randall Cobb, Chris Conley, who's a surprising add here. But a lot of that is due to the fact that Sammy Watkins is out for probably until the real playoffs, and DeAndre Hopkins and Julio Jones as well. What are your predictions here, Mac?
Looking at these wide receivers here, looks like Sean has a more solid, consistent group of people here, but with Julio Jones and DeAndre Hopkins here, I might have to go Cowboys again. This is probably the closest matchup yet between positions, I would say, but I'd still have to go, I think, Cowboys here.
I agree. The way I'm looking at it is Larry Fitzgerald and Randall Cobb are actually pretty comparable to me the way they've been playing. Obviously, both are on the downward trend of their career. Fitzgerald playing on a very mediocre Cardinals offense, and it's weird to say that the Packers have a mediocre offense as well, but I'm perfectly fine with that as a Bears fan, and I'm sure you are as well.
Yes,
being a Vikings fan. It's fun to see them be the dumpster fire of the division for once. It really is.
Yeah. Living in Minnesota, going to school here, you always run into a few Packers fans. I had a friend of mine try to tell me yesterday that Aaron Rodgers is the best playing QB currently over Tom Brady. We got in a big argument about it. But I bet you Vic would have something to say about that. But, it's good to see that these Packer fans are watching their team slowly go down the toilet.
Well, it's like I said, the dumpster fire is fun, especially here in Chicago. We've had it for how many years of not being able to find a quarterback, and the same goes for your Vikings. And then Packers get to go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers like it's nothing to find a quarterback. Yeah. So it is nice to see them just fall apart.
I know it's seen that I wouldn't say dynasty of a team, but that the quarterback talent they had not helped them out this year whatsoever. It's fantastic.
So, like I said, I would call Fitz and Cobb a wash. Adam Humphries, I would prefer much more over Chris Conley, even though he is a part of that Kansas City Chiefs offense. I could see them getting up big at some point against Baltimore, even though it's a very tough matchup. I like what Adam Humphries can do. He obviously draws the New Orleans Saints. He's going to play out of the slot. He's kind of playing like a Jarvis Landry this year or a Julian Edelman type role, where, okay, he won't have 100 yards or 15 catches, but he's going to get a solid 60 yards, 6 or 7 catches. And if he gets a touchdown, you're happy because he's almost on 20-point mark at that point. So obviously Humphries has the advantage over Conley. And DJ Moore and Mohamed Sanu, DJ Moore is up and coming, but he's nothing compared to DeAndre Hopkins at this point, obviously with CMC being a big part of the Panthers offense. And Sanu, same offense as Julio Jones, but we know Julio can easily put up 10 catches, 140 yards, and maybe a touchdown on the year. I mean, who knows? But obviously Julio's got the better advantage, so give me Cowboys. So far, they lead 3 categories to 0. Let's see if they can go for the clean sweep on the way out here. And this is where it gets fun because you've got 2 players, same offense, technically same position in fantasy, with Vance McDonald taking on Jalen Samuels, who does have that tight end designation, and that is due to the fact that he was a tight end in college. Coming into the draft, he tested as a tight end. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously with Le'Veon Bell on his way likely out for the going into the season, they needed somebody that could step behind James Conner just in case of injury, in case Bell didn't come back as it happened. So we've got Vance McDonald taking on Jalen Samuels. Who are you taking in this one?
This is tough. This is really tough because, like you said, they both play for Pittsburgh and they're both taking on Oakland this week. And, I think I'm going to have to go Cowboys one more time because they will have to hand the ball off a few times at least. And I think Jalen Samuels will get good opportunities. And Pittsburgh just got too many passing options. I'd say with Washington out there. The rest. And so I'm gonna have to go Samuels again because he's gonna be able to. He's got that. He has the tight end eligibility, but as a running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's gonna, I think, put up some good numbers this week, better than actual tight end. For this.
I agree, and it's been a very, like we said before, tough tight end year. And with Jalen Samuels, the one concern I have with him is if he's been a pass catching back. He's played almost the Austin Eckler or Alvin Kamara type role for Pittsburgh, even with James Conner out there. He would get some touches, not very many, where, okay, I'm going to be the pass catching back. That's all I do. And I wonder if, because Pittsburgh does have the bell cow back history that they tend to do that, if Jalen Samuels does it, or if they get up big on the Raiders, they want to save Samuels for the next week, or even just keep him in his usual role and let Stephen Ridley take over as the plotter, just gain 3-4 yards every carry, just keep the offense moving, keep the Raiders off the field. It's tough, and I would still go Samuels because obviously running back touches are more worth tight end targets at this point, just due to the fact that McDonald usually gets 6-7 targets a week, but Jalen Samuels is likely to get many more looks than that, just being a running back. So Cowboys 4-0 going into the final position, which is the flex spot. And this was actually pretty interesting because you've got receivers versus running backs essentially here with Dante Moncrief, Ty Montgomery, and David Moore for the Carolina Panthers taking on Chris Carson, LaShawn McCoy, and Adrian Peterson. And this is actually pretty interesting to me just because you have two very old running backs in Adrian Peterson, LaShawn McCoy, who are on the trading block. I will give that out there for you, Jared. You did post that up recently. So if anyone watching is interested in those two, they are available for trade after this season. Given their lifespan, I don't know how much they'll be worth in fantasy, but you never know. So obviously Dante Moncrief only put up 9.7 points on Thursday Night Football. You have Ty Montgomery, who we don't know what he's going to be this week for Baltimore because of the fact that Gus Edwards could be back, and he really didn't do much last week. He put up 10 points, 3 carries for 13 yards. He did have 5 catches for 42, so he's going to play that catching back role just like he did in Green Bay. And David Moore for the Seattle Seahawks, he's a guy that he always seems to have a way to find the highlight reel, whether it's 3 catches for 60 yards. He always comes down with a touchdown. It feels like he was on a streak there. He's got 5 touchdowns on the year, and 4 of them came 1 week after the other. He's only done it 1 touchdown in the last 5 weeks. So obviously tough to rely on him taking on a Minnesota defense. And like I said, you've got the running backs for Dallas. Who are you taking in this one, Mac?
Looking at that, like you said, David Moore, he hasn't done fantastic in the last 2 weeks. He had the 4 touchdowns back to back there, but since then it's been kind of slow. It's tough. To me, this is closer. This is after seeing the wide receivers are close. This is the closest one yet. But Chris Carson, could be phased out a little bit by Rashad Penny. Who knows? We'll see this week. But once again, it's against Minnesota defense. LaShawn McCoy getting old, but against the Jets, so he'll probably see some good touches this week. AP's been solid the last few weeks. Last couple of weeks, he's found his footing again. He's old as shit, but somehow still put up a 90-yard rush last week. So he still got it in him.
Wait, was that last week?
That was last week. That 90-yard rush was last week.
The crazy thing is he had that 90-yard rush, and then the other 8 rushes, 8 yards.
8 yards. So he still got that explosiveness you can see, but he's old as hell. And so I'm surprised. Honestly, I'm surprised that he just admitted to beating his kid again. So, I don't know why he's allowed to still play right now. So
I forgot about that. I
Like
forgot about that.
a couple weeks ago, he's like, "I still do it." Like, holy shit, you're dumb as a rock, but god damn it, you can put a 90-yard run still, and you're fucking old as hell. But it's just this is the toughest one, but I might have to go. I think I have to go Dallas again.
Yeah, for me, it's not as tough simply because LaShawn McCoy is going to get the touches, like you said, especially against the Jets. He can do a little bit of everything. He can run, he can catch. He's got the shifty ability like he used to. Chris Carson obviously is always a question mark, and I love the picture that I found for him flipping upside down against the Panthers. Always fun. But it's tough to say. None of these guys really have a high ceiling or a high floor. Peterson is obviously going to have a lot of touches with who are the Redskins on? Mark Sanchez now at quarterback with Alex Smith fighting an infection after a broken leg, and then Colt McCoy having his leg broken as well this season.
Mark Sanchez,
Mr. Butt Fumble.
Butt recovery last week.
Yes.
Butt recovery last week.
The butt fumble, though, always cracks me up. I can watch that
God.
probably 50 times in a row and still just laugh my ass off at that play.
We've come full circle. You know, butt fumble last week, butt recovery. You know, who knows what's going to happen next week? Who knows?
Exactly. Next, it's going to be he's going to pass it off somebody's ass and he's going to catch it and run for 5 yards. Be the butt catch.
The butt catch. I think that's what has to be next.
Yeah, for me, I'm going Dallas though, simply because of the fact that you've got the more likely ability for touches. Everybody's going to have that work because they are running backs. Carson's a question mark due to his health and whether or not he's going to stay on the field with Rashad Penny starting to take over. LaShawn obviously is going to be huge for the Bills. And then Peterson, because they have no quarterback in Mark Sanchez, Chris Thompson really hasn't done a whole lot. AP is about all they've got at this point. So give me a Dallas Cowboys for the clean sweep. I'm predicting about a 50-point win, if not more. I'm going to say 203 to about one. I'm going to go 125 for the Panthers. What's your prediction on score?
So 50 points sounds good. I'd have to say at least over 200 for the Cowboys and not even close to there for the Panthers. The Panthers have been, it's like they got shot in both knees 4 weeks ago. They've been dragging their body across game after game, losing. It's finally time to put Sean out of his misery here this week. He's going to get blown the fuck out by the Cowboys. That's my prediction.
And when asked about this matchup by the coaches themselves, I asked each of the owners what they thought was going to happen this week. Dallas Cowboys took a very good road. They said, I want to commend the Panthers on their coaching staff and for making it to the playoffs. Making it to the dance, as they say, is how you stay employed. So they kind of took that they took the high road of, hey, it's good to be here, good to see you. And then when asked about if Sean had any words for his opponent, he simply went, fuck the Cowgirls. This is the closest they'll come to the playoffs. So apparently Sean knows something that we obviously don't, as he thinks he's going to win in this matchup against Jared. Obviously Jared is looking to face Keith in the semifinals once again, as he lost in the MLB playoffs to Keith. He wants that revenge. It's going to be a fun one. Obviously Sean knows something we all don't. I don't know what he's smoking, what he's drinking, but I need some of it.
Some commissioner hacks. He's gonna a little bit. I think that's his only chance this week is if he goes in the commissioner options and fucks it with his scores and win. That's the only chance this week.
I agree, and it's unless he just makes some personal calls to the owners as well. Just says, hey, you have to get the ball to this guy. I need this. Just goes, I'm a commissioner. Don't you know who I am?
It reminds me of the league. If you ever seen the league when
yep, absolutely love it.
When he meets him in the hot tub. I forgot who it was exactly, but
damn, who was that? That's gonna bug me if I can't think of it.
It's Nick Kroll. I think it's Nick Kroll.
Yeah, Antonio Gates. Antonio Gates, because he got 2 or 3 touchdowns that week and he fucked him over and he hated him.
Sean's gonna pull some shit like that if he wants to win this week. So we'll see. Oh my god.
But that's it for this week. We'll actually have something. We might try and do this more often. I like it with the 2 people, especially when it comes to the playoffs, and kind of with the news, kind of run through it and see who else wants to join in. So I want to thank you for joining me, Mac. That was a blast.
I had a great time. I'm down to do this whenever. Sean just won some tickets from the local radio station to see his ECHL team, the South Carolina Stingrays. So that's probably going to be his highlight of the week after he gets his ass stomped by the Cowboys. So he should.
That's actually badass to win that, and that's fun as hell. But yeah, that's the highest he's going to be after seeing the way we predicted this as well.
Because tomorrow is going to be depressing as hell for him. So yeah, at least he's getting a nice high point tonight.
Exactly. But once again, thank you for joining me, and I'm excited to see what happens, especially the games that we have coming up tomorrow. Baltimore and Kansas City. You've got the Bears taking on the Rams. I forget what Monday nights is, but that's supposed to be a good matchup as well. So, like I said, enjoy it. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Have a good night, Mac.
You too. See ya.